Chuck Haley, 9 o'clock church, welcome. It's a great Sunday morning. I'm glad you're here with me. We are in Nehemiah again. We're skipping over chapter 1. We're going to chapter 2. Chapter 1 is about prayer. We're going to go back the next 2 weeks after this, and we're going to look at chapter 1 and the foundations of getting things done and beginning with prayer. Today, we're going on to plans. How we motivate, how we get things done, and how plans are so integral. You've got to know that Nehemiah is such a practical book. In fact, Ezra and Nehemiah are probably the two most practical books in the Old Testament. I saw a story this week, and other people use their Fire Stick to binge watch Laverne and Shirley or whatever, and I use mine to watch Bloomberg News. So, it tells you a little bit about me. On Bloomberg News yesterday, there was a story about a rocket ship company called Relativity. And Relativity is unique in the fact that they 3D print everything, which means it only takes two people at the factory at any one time. And they say there are some days where nobody's at the factory. And the robots are just there working away, building fuel tanks or rods or bolts or whatever they build robot stuff. And here's the application. So first, they say they can build a rocket ship quicker than anybody else because everything's fed through this plasma wire, and this tool just this robot goes around and welds everything together with a plasma bead, make any shape as big as small as you want. So that's pretty cool. And then the other thing is the owners of the company state that when we do get people to Mars, which kind of looks like we're going to do that eventually, when they land, they're not going to need a ship with a pod and a crew to survive. They're going to need greenhouses and water sources and air tanks and all these. And he says, are we going to put together these air tanks and send up empty tanks to space? No. He says, we're going to send up my robot that does 3D printing with a spool of plasma wire, and he's going to build whatever you want, whenever you want, all the way from your storage compartments to your houses to spare parts for the rocket itself. Now that's a pretty cool concept. And I wish I'd come up with that. I wish I had the finances to finance something like that. But that's really innovative. I mean, that's beyond the leading edge. That's the bleeding edge. It's just an amazing thing to watch that and to know that somebody was able to cast that vision, think about something that nobody else had thought of, and knew this is a need that has to be done. It's different. It's going to change everything, but it's got to be done. Nehemiah is on his way over to Jerusalem. He's going to do something that's got to be done. They've tried a couple of times to rebuild the walls, and both times it failed miserably. He's facing a group of people that are in despair. They are despondent. They don't want to move. They don't want to do anything. They are tired of failure, and they're afraid of failing again. So Nehemiah has to do this right and do it right the first time. So let's go ahead and look here. We're in Nehemiah. We're in chapter 2, verse 11. We're not going to take a lot of time today, but I do want you to know, as we read through this, I want you to kind of interact, just think about these answers as I'm asking questions. Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 11. So I came to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. Stop. Full stop. He's there 3 days. He says, and then I arose at night. Why is he there 3 days and then he arises? What's he doing unarisen for 3 days? He could be resting. I mean, it is a pretty brutal journey getting across that desert. And so I'm sure rest had a lot to do with it. He was probably praying. We know from the chapter 1 that he is a man of prayer, a very strong man of prayer. He might have been planning. That's a possibility. But of all the things that we know that he could have been doing intentionally, one thing that he was doing unintentionally is he was creating curiosity. People were wondering, what's this guy up to? 3 days. And then he gets up, and he gets up at night. Then I rose in the night, and I had a few men with me, and I told no one what God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem, nor were there any animals with me except the ones on which I rode. I'm not quite sure why that's important. It's important enough to put in the Bible. I don't think Nehemiah's editor gave him a call and said, hey, stretch that part a little more, get a more flair. I'm thinking possibly, what other animals would you take with you except what you're going to ride? You're not going to take any to eat. It's a one-night trip. So possibly your pets, dogs, cats. And you wouldn't take those because they might distract you, make a noise, get the attention of people you don't want the attention of. For whatever reason, he's letting us know, I am single-minded focus, and I'm taking a minimal amount of people, a minimal amount of animals, and I'm getting a maximum amount of information. The animals with me, except the ones on which I rode, and I went out by night through the valley gate to the serpent wall and the refuge gate and viewed the walls of Jerusalem. What do you think he's doing? He's doing his homework. He's getting his facts straight. He wants to know that what he has heard is true. This is the lonely part of ministry. This is the part where God is with you, speaking to you and you alone, and you're being open and vulnerable to the voice of God as he lets you know this is the direction I'm calling you. And he viewed the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down, and the gates which were burned with fire. That had to be hard to see. Then I went to the fountain gate and to the king's pool, but there was no room for an animal under me to pass. Can't get through the gate, too broken down. So I went up in the night by the valley and viewed the walls. Then I turned back and entered the valley gate, and so returned. And the officials did not know where I had gone, nor what I had done. I had not yet told the Jews, the priests, the nobles, the officials, or any of the others that would do the work. Now think about that for a minute. You're in your tent or house or wherever. You're there for 3 days. Then you arise. Then you go. Everybody's wondering what you're doing. They probably don't see you leave because it's nighttime. And for some reason, he lets us know he doesn't tell people when he gets back. Could have been dawn by then. We don't know. And all this time, he's gathering information. And it's not until he gets back he tells us, and you know what else? I'm not going to tell anybody. Not just yet. There's something that happens when there is a change. When a change is called for, our heart doesn't really interpret it as change. Our heart feels loss. We knew what the old thing was, and we're familiar with it, and we know it's gone. And now we've got the new thing, and we really don't know what this new thing is. And so change is viewed by the heart as a loss, and the emotion that goes with it is grief. And if you're going to be a change agent in this world for Christ, you've got to know that when you ask people to turn their hearts and their lives over to God, it's more than just a yippee joy, God has saved me. It's also a grief because my old life that I was used to, that I could hold on to and pet and have fun with, it's gone. And there's a grief undertone to this joyous salvation. And be ready to deal with both. When there's something new that has to happen at work, you go to the book of Nehemiah and you see how he deals with it. He prays about it. He makes his plan. He makes his presentation. He waits on God's timing. He doesn't jump right in. It's 3 days. Then he gets his homework straight. If you got something brand new, if you get a promotion at work, follow the same procedure. Something new happening at school, you've got to follow the same thing. Say there's a new family dynamic or a new family. Say that there is a project and you've just got to get this project off the ground. Pray about it. Get your plan straight. Do your homework. and then make your presentation. Because all this stuff happens better with other people. Things normally don't happen alone. Normally you have a leader and you have followers, and together you form a team, and that team is what brings success. That's the exact direction that Nehemiah is headed. And he spends a lot of time doing all this research, and he asks, and I ask, and one of the reasons I ask questions, even though I know, you talk, I can't hear you right now. We're going to change that, by the way. I'm going to take a couple Wednesday nights this summer, and we'll have some conversations, live streaming. That'll be cool. But in order to get people on board with the vision, you've got to be able to deal with that grief as well as that celebration. In this book, we're going to find things to deal with in everyday life. And it's all going to start with prayer. We're going to pray now. Dear God, bless this sermon. Let it reach those who need to hear it. Let us understand that there are obstacles in our life, and we need to be able to identify them. In Nehemiah's case, it was Sanballat and Tobiah. In our case, it might be complacency, insecurity, the guy that works next to us in the cubicle, a lack of honor, a lack of vision, a lack of leadership. It might be finances, it might be emotional situations. But whatever these obstacles are, Lord, prepare our heart to plan for them. Because if we don't see them at a distance, we will be blindsided when they hit. We ask, Lord, that we be able to share these things and share them in your timing, because nobody wants their vision hijacked. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.